Today we're going to talk about quadratic equation. You need to know what quadratic equation is. That's x squared plus bx plus c, and that is equal to 0. X squared plus bx plus c. That is quadratic equation. To factor quadratic equation, this is what you get. The square root of the first thing plus m, and then x plus p. So x plus m and x plus p. M, you need to know, they add to get b, and they multiply to get c. So like if you were to FOIL x plus m and x plus p, m plus p gives you b, and m times p gives you c. And that's all you need to know. Let's factor x squared plus 9x plus 20. Let's factor it. So really what I do is the first thing plus something, and then it's x plus something else. We got to figure out what those two missing pieces are. What we do is we see what they multiply to and what they add to. So really what we're going to do is we're going to see what are the factors of 20. That last thing, c, the number by itself, we're going to figure out what the factors of 20 are, and then we're going to compare what their sum is. Because remember, this is what they multiply to, this is what they add to. So we need to figure out what multiplies to give us 20 and adds to give us 9. The factors of 20, one of them is 1 and 20. What's the sum of 1 and 20? 21. Is that 9? No. 2 and 10. Okay, is that sum is 12. Is that 9? How about 4 and 5? What do they add to? 9. So x plus 4 and x plus 5. That's my two terms.
So you go till you can find one of the variables.
You go, really what you're doing is you're trying to find out what multiplies to give you 20 and adds to give you 9. You need to find those two numbers. That's all you do. So let's do d squared plus 11x plus 24. So it's d plus something and then d plus something else. We need to figure out what multiplies to give us 24 and adds to give us 11. So let's think of the factors of 24. 1 and 24. Does that add to give me 11? No. 2 and 12. Does that add to give me 11? 8 what about 8 and 3? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Does it matter if 8 goes first or 3 goes first?
It does matter.
It does not. You could do d plus 3 times d plus 8, or you could do like I did, d plus 8 times 3d plus 3. When b is negative, when the number in front of x is negative, and c is positive, the number by itself is positive, that means both m and p are negative. So instead of doing x plus something and x plus something, you do, x minus something times x minus something. And you have to think about it, because if you have two negatives, what do they multiply to give you? A positive. When you add them, what do they give you? A negative. Okay? So they're going to add to give you negative 8, multiply to give you 12. What terms multiply to give me 12? 1 and 2. Do they add to give you negative 8? No. What about 2 and 6? Would that? Yes, it would. And if you're not for sure, if you're ever stuck, you can FOIL it to see if you get it right. This would give you x squared. That would give you negative 6x. That would give you negative 2x. That would give you positive 12. So you must be right.
You use 3 and 4.
Write this down. W squared minus 11w plus 28. You know that b is positive and c is negative. So that's going to leave you with both m and p being negative. You just have to figure out what multiplies to give you 28 and adds to give you negative 11. And both terms are negative. So what are the terms of 28? 1 and 28. Does that add to give you negative 11?
7
No. 2 and 14. Does that add to give you negative 11? No. 7 and 4. Does it add to give you negative 11? Yes. And there's your answer. Well, let's do this one. 21 minus 22 m plus m squared. Does that really change anything?
No.
No, this is still your first term. This is still B, and this is still C. So we need to figure out what, which you could rearrange it if you wanted to and wrote it like this.
That's what I would do.
That's what I would do. You have M minus something times M minus something. What adds to give you 21, or what multiplies to give you 21, and adds to give you negative 22. 1 and 21. And C is negative. M and P have opposite signs. So when you look here and we see this is negative, this is positive, which means the bigger number is going to be positive. Okay, so it's M plus something, or X plus something, and then X minus something. You have to decide which one's going to be negative and which one's going to be positive. The order does matter on this. So first thing I do is figure out what are the terms of 15. What multiply give you 15? 1 and 15. Do those, when one's positive and one's negative, give you 2? No. What about 3 and 5? Do they add, when they're opposite signs, do they add to give you 2? Yes, they do. Now what you got to do is figure out which one's positive and which one's negative.
5 is positive.
If you did positive 5 and negative 3, would that add to give you positive 2? Yes. If you had done negative 5 and positive 3, you got negative 2. And that's not what it... So it's x plus 5 and x minus 3. X squared minus 7x minus 18. You know, since C is negative, they're going to be opposite signs. So go ahead and do x plus something and x minus something. What you have to... Then the next thing you do is you look at B. It's negative, so that means my bigger number is going to be negative. The slide before this was positive, so 5 had to be positive. But this time it's negative, so my bigger number has to be negative. So what are the factors of 18? 1 and 18. If they're opposite signs, do they add to give me negative 7? No. What about 2 and 9? Would those multiply give me 18? Would those add to give me negative 7? Yes. So which one's got to be negative and which one's got to be positive? 9 has to be negative because when you take 2 minus 9, you get negative 7. If you did 9 minus 2, you get positive 7, and that's not what's up there. It's negative 7. So there's my answer. Again, if you're afraid that you're wrong, FOIL it. You'll see that in this case it comes out to give you that. So you'll be right. You guys go ahead and work the last one. Y squared plus 13y minus 48. We see that y or C is negative, so that means they're going to be opposite signs. And I also see that it's positive 13y. B is positive, so that means my bigger number is going to be positive. The smaller number is going to be negative. So then I go through my factors of 48. 1 and 48, no. 2 and 24, no. How about 3 and 16? Yes. Because 16 minus 3 is 13. X squared plus 6x equals 27. When it says solve by factoring, what I need to do is get 0 on one side. So I'm going to move 27 to the other side. That gives me this. You can't solve it unless 0 is on one side. Then we factor x squared plus 6x minus 27. I see that C is negative, so they're going to be opposite signs. And then I decide what's going to multiply, give me negative 27, and add to give me positive 6. How about 9 and 3? Yeah. Which one's got to be positive, 9 or 3? 9, the bigger one. So then what I do is I split them up. I do x plus 9 equals 0, and I do x minus 3 is equal to 0. And I figure out what x is. Here, x is negative 9. Here, x is 3. So there's your two answers, negative 9 and 3. X squared plus 3x minus 18. So the first thing I have to do is make 0 on one side, which has already been done. I look and I see that C is negative. So that means they're going to be opposite signs. Then I do my factors of 18. 1 and 18, no. 2 and 9, no.
3.
6 and 3, yes. Okay, my larger one's going to be 6 because it leaves me with positive 3x. So I make those both equal to 0. This one's going to be 3. This one's going to be negative 6. There's your two terms. Here's your homework.